If you wanted to know why Netflix was so willing to fork over hundreds of millions of dollars for the rights to two Knives Out sequels, here is your answer. After just 10 days on the streaming service, Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, has already cracked the top 10 list of the most watched Netflix films in the history of the company. Over the week between Christmas and New Year's, Netflix subscribers watched a total of 127 million hours of the film, more than triple the second most watched film on the service, Roald Dahl's Matilda the Musical, 41 million hours viewed. And the third most watched film last week was the original Benoit Blanc mystery from writer-director Rian Johnson, Knives Out. Shakira's Best Dance breaks Netflix's other big new release last week, White Noise, was number 4 on the Netflix weekly top 10 list, with 12.2 million hours viewed. That's barely a tenth of Glass Onion's total last week, but perhaps that's a good total for an adaptation of a bleak novel about an airborne toxic event. Here is the new most watched films in Netflix history list, the most popular films on Netflix. These are the 10 most popular films, in English, based on hours viewed in their first 28 days on Netflix. The numbers come from Netflix's official site. 1. Red Notice. Netflix. 1. Red Notice, 364 million hours. 2. Don't Look Up. Netflix. 2. Don't Look Up, 359 million hours. 3. Bird Box. Netflix. 3. Bird Box, 282 million hours. 4. The Gray Man. Netflix. 4. The Gray Man, 253 million hours. 5. The Adam Project. Netflix. 5. The Adam Project, 233 million hours. 6. Extraction. Netflix. 6. Extraction, 231 million hours. 7. Purple Hearts. Netflix. 7. Purple Hearts, 228 million hours. 8. The Unforgivable. Netflix. 8. The Unforgivable, 214 million hours. 9. The Irishman. Netflix. 9. The Irishman, 214 million hours. 10. Glass Onion. Netflix. 10. Glass Onion, 209 million hours. Netflix measures the movies on this list by comparing their first 28 days of release on the service, which means Glass Onion still has another 18 days of eligibility to rack up many more millions of hours. Meaning it will likely wind up near or maybe even at the top of this list in a couple of weeks. In other words, they're going to want Johnson working on the next one of these Benoit Blanc movies as soon as humanly possible. Meanwhile, the most watched show on Netflix last week was once again the first season of Wednesday, which has now topped the list of the most popular shows on Netflix for 6 straight weeks. The worst Netflix movies of 2022. Netflix releases so many movies every year, they can't all be classics. 1. Tall Girl. 2. Netflix. 1. Tall Girl. 2. She's back, and she's taller than ever. The tall girl, that is. Sure, she has a name, Jodie Ava Michelle, but that's not nearly as important as the fact that she stands at 6 feet 1 inch. It's really important to the plot of this sequel, because quite frankly, it's the only thing working against her. Jodie has started a relationship with her best friend Jack Dunkelman, Griffin Gluck. She's super popular, and she's just scored the lead in the School musical. Somehow, that's a problem, because Jodie's inner critic is telling her that she's not good enough. Because she's too tall. Somewhere in this movie, there's a message about overcoming your insecurities and believing in yourself. But getting us to care about a protagonist whose singular adversity is her own standards of perfection. That's a tall order. 2. Marmaduke. Netflix. 2. Marmaduke. We've come a hell of a long way from Brad Anderson's charming newspaper comic strip. This year's Marmaduke reminds us that Hollywood has no problem running beloved franchises into the ground, rehashing them until they're an undistinguishable mess of viral TikTok moments and fart jokes. You thought the 2010 adaptation of Marmaduke starring Owen Wilson as the titular Great Dane was bad. Somehow, this one is even worse. Do yourself a favor and convince your child to watch Netflix's far superior animated endeavor The Sea Beast instead. 3. Spiderhead. Netflix. 3. Spiderhead. Sci-fi movies based on short stories can be effective. Paul Verhoeven's Total Recall and Denis Villeneuve's Arrival are great examples. But they can also be incredibly difficult to get through, such as in the case of Spiderhead. Set in a futuristic penitentiary where prisoners can shorten their sentences by volunteering to be subjects of chemical testing, convict Jeff Miles Teller finds himself questioning his own reality at the hands of supervisor Steve Abnesti, Chris Hemsworth. It plays out like a feature-length, B-grade Black Mirror episode that never lives up to the potential of its A-list cast, or potent source material. 4. Purple Hearts. Netflix. 4. Purple Hearts. Netflix's romantic drama Purple Hearts follows the slow-burning romance between Cassie, Sophia Carson, an aspiring singer with type 1 diabetes, and ex-addict turned Marine Luke Nicholas Galatzine. The two strangers agree to marry to reap the military benefits, Cassie will obtain much needed healthcare, and Luke will make more money. It's Dear John meets the proposal. The biggest problem with Purple Hearts is that it attempts to address serious themes using hollow, perhaps even damaging stereotypes. It had the potential to offer hard-hitting insight on the many who feel like the system has failed them, but it opted for stale cliches instead. It's worth noting that this movie was on Netflix's top 10 list for 28 days, garnering 23.41 million viewing hours a week. So, obviously, some people enjoyed it. It's not the worst Netflix movie of the year, but it's easy to see why it rubbed so many people the wrong way. 5. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Netflix. 5. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise seems to be gradually getting worse as time goes on, and its Netflix-produced ninth installment, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, falls right in line. David Blue Garcia's film takes place decades after the original, with Leatherface targeting a new group of young adults as he's pursued by a vengeful survivor of his past attacks. Several critics knocked the film for its lack of suspense and too short runtime of 83 minutes. During a year with so many fresh horror ideas, such as those found in Nope and X, it's probably the right time to leave the Texas Chainsaw Massacre behind. 6. Persuasion. Netflix. 6. Persuasion was obviously inspired by Autumn de Wilde's Emma, the refreshingly modern-feeling period film also based on a work by Jane Austen. It also aims to capture the crackling electricity of Phoebe Waller-Bridge's wall-breaking Fleabag. But unfortunately, this retelling of the classic novel falls painfully flat on its petticoat-covered rump. Dakota Johnson does her best as the intelligent, conflicted Anne Elliot, but her efforts are in vain. Nothing about this movie is able to capture the depth of the source material. In no world should Anne Elliot be uttering the words, "I'm single and thriving," directly into the camera before a montage of her chugging red wine and crying in the bath. What did we do as a society to deserve this? 7. The Royal Treatment. Netflix. 7. The Royal Treatment. A couple of years ago, Netflix began its foray into the Hallmark genre, churning up the same kind of sweet, sappy romance flicks before only reserved for cable. Some of them fall into the category of so bad it's good, but The Royal Treatment is just bad. Laura Marano plays Izzy, a hairdresser who jumps at the opportunity to work at Prince Thomas Mina Masood's wedding. That is, until she catches feelings for the prince himself. You can probably already predict the end of this movie without even seeing it, which might bring you feelings of comfort, or might make you want to throw up. 8. Senior Year. Netflix. 8. Senior Year remained on Netflix's top 10 movie list for a total of 6 weeks, accumulating over 167 million viewing hours during that period. But a movie doesn't have to be good for this to happen. Sometimes, the cringiest content is the stuff that's hard to avoid. Rebel Wilson stars as Steph Conway, a high school cheer captain who awakes after a 20-year coma to find that she's now 37. She's determined to return to high school and secure the title of prom queen, but she finds that the standard for cool has changed since the birth of Gen Z. Look, Rebel Wilson is funny in just about everything she's in, and it's hard to deny her comedic chops here. But the laughs are too few and far between, and the cloying message of be yourself doesn't ring true. 9. The Bubble. Netflix. 9. The Bubble. From his work on the Larry Sanders Show to his own Netflix series Love, Judd Apatow has proven that he knows ins and outs of the entertainment industry well enough to poke fun at it. The Bubble, which follows a big-budget action film production amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, should have been a lot funnier than it is. While it features a heavy-hitting ensemble cast including Karen Gillan, Fred Armisen, and Apatow's own daughter Iris, The Bubble couldn't rise above its meandering, hackneyed plot. True Apatow diehards will likely watch this movie anyway, but very few would rank it among his best work. 10. Me Time. Netflix. 10. Me Time. With a current score of 6% on Rotten Tomatoes, it's clear that John Hamburg's Me Time didn't please many critics. Kevin Hart and Mark Wahlberg are wasted on the overwhelmingly unfunny material, as they slog their way through crass jokes and wacky stunts. Hart plays Sonny, an overworked stay-at-home dad who finds himself with rare me time when his wife and kids are away. Soon bored, he joins his old friend Huck Wahlberg for his annual birthday bash, a decision that nearly upends his life. Look, you don't want to waste your time watching Me Time. It's as simple as that.